How's it going, everybody? Having a good afternoon, I hope, or evening, depending where you are, where you're located. Um, Today, I thought it might be sort of fun to talk about the. It has to do with sort of a discovery in watch collection. In other words, you start off and you maybe know a few brands, and then you come to some new ones. And so let's talk about the what brands you've discovered. Hello, hello. Hi there, Tim. Rolex. You didn't know about Rolex before you started, Tim? Hi, Thomas. How you doing, Junior? Good to see you. Hey, Mehmet. Istanbul. How are things in Istanbul? Truman. Good evening. Alexander. Hi, neighbor. Gronfeld. That was one I had not heard of. A lot of people still haven't heard of Groenfeld, but yeah, that's a heck of a nice brand. It's one too. There are a lot of brands I've heard of and I like and I can't afford. That's one of them, unless something sort of fun comes my way. As a matter of fact, I can't think of a single German brand that I really knew. Let me open my curtain a little here. Bring out my curtain opening stick. There it is. We're having it's sort of a overcast day, which is so I don't go blind opening up the curtains. Hey Caesar, how you doing? I'm at 4 a.m. Caesar, where are you? where where is it 4 a.m.? Oh, it'd be 4 a.m. on the other side of the world. Yes. At 4 a.m. here, it's 4 o'clock there. Hey, Thomas. Um, Gary. Yeah, Gary. Garrick is one that is not too well known at all. Hi, Robert. How you doing? Indonesia. I knew it was there. I knew it was over there somewhere. Hey, Junior. Boy, so it's Caesar. It's 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. So it's Sunday morning. Here it's still Saturday afternoon. We're gonna have we're gonna be having a time change not too long from now, and Europe changes before the U.S. does, and so we're gonna have to work on our coordinations. I think that I the only brands I really knew of. I mean, if somebody asked me to name, more than one or two brands, I'd probably come up with. I knew about Patek Philippe and Rolex, of course, and Timex and Bulova. I knew about Bulova, some of the older ones, but that was about it. I didn't, pay that much attention. And then when I started off, I learned about the Holy Trinity, and so I learned about Vacheron Constantin and Audemars Piguet that I could add to my Patek Philippe. And then beyond that, I started learning about brands. One of the, or actually two of the brands that at the time I was in my early collection days that were really good buys at the time. One was Parmigiani and the other one was H. Moser. Now, since that time, Parmigiani's prices have shot up and so have H. Moser's. And the way it's happened has been good for the company. I mean, it's not just that somebody suddenly starts making really good watches. Parmigiani had always been making good watches, and I think since about some in the early 2000s when H. Moser was taken over by some, I'm trying to think who they were, and then later on, not much later on, the Malin family bought them, and so they've been having sort of one good thing after another. Um, I think Parmigiani was sort of is one of those companies that it was sort of like having you had a true artist, wasn't a true businessman, but he was both an artist as far as a watchmaker is concerned, and an artist as far as horology is concerned. But as far as business was concerned, he'd just be making these watches that he thought were good and he liked and I liked and a few other people did. But and they were great watches. He still makes them, but they were not doing well until just the last couple of years. Some guy used to be the head of Gucci took over, and more people probably know about it. But I wonder, I mean, somebody outside of the collectors who know about it. There are, of course, there are a million micro brands. One I think is that's become important. That sort of there was sort of a group of watchmakers who sort of in the turn of the century, F.P. Journe, Grubel, and Forsay, and a lot of those guys sort of were starting off then. There were some other ones, a little older, like Roger Dubuis and Jean-Marc Viderec, uh, Daniel Roth. Now they were sort of Daniel Roth was working, sort of literally saving Brigade, bringing them back from sort of the brink of extinction, and certainly from the brink of mediocrity. Uh, and then Jean-Marc Viderec and Roger Dubuis were working with different companies that really weren't the best known as watch companies. For example, Harry Winston. Somebody, I forgot who it was. I think it's Federico, or one of the other guys who has a video chat, was talking about what a good buy Harry Winston's were because people who were working on them were good. And I agree with that. And so those are kind of discovery. Now the funny thing was I had known Harry Winston as being the jeweler of the stars. And so at the Academy Awards, you'd see all of these movie stars with these jewels that were dripping off of them, and the announcer would say these are from Harry Winston. Most of them were on loan from Harry Winston that they got to use for Academy Awards or something. And so that was, I mean, I didn't know so much about the watch, but by trying to learn about the watches by these luxury brands, I learned a lot about horology because all of these great watchmakers were doing things for them. Let's see. Okay, let's see what else. Hey, Paul, I never heard of F.P. Journe. Most people still haven't. Yeah, they haven't. Okay, now you've heard of it. This is my F.P. Journe, as plain can be. Truman, Parmigiano has also shot up in price. Reggiano, I don't know that one, Truman. Hey, Chili Burger. Oh, Chili Badger, I mean, Zenith. I never came across Zenith. It's funny, Zenith was a brand I'd heard of before. Um, in fact, I got one, early on. I didn't realize that Chopard did watches. Yeah, that was like my sort of lack of knowledge. I did Chopard, I thought they were a jeweler, and a lot of these other ones that they essentially were jewelers. I think sort of one of my sort of later discoveries was that the jewelers can make these fabulous cases because a really great watch case is usually a piece of jewelry. My Chaumet may not. I mean, well, it's got sort of half great horology and half ETA as far as the movement's concerned. But boy, the casing and all of the other parts of it are really really spectacular. Gallet watches, yeah, Gallet, Alexander, yeah, Gallet watches. Now they're, I think, aren't they one of the newer ones? I'm not sure, but I think they are. There's some other ones. I'm trying to think. Oh, I can't think of the name of them again, but they're these really great watchmakers would make different versions of it. I can't think of the name of the company. Uh, ah, anyway, there are ones like that. I mean, I know a whole lot of them, many of which I've forgotten about. Roger Dubuis sounds cheesy. Chili Burger, Badger. No, it doesn't. Roger Dubuis. Doesn't sound cheesy. Okay, Junior, let's see. Hi, Mike's Watches, Mont Blanc. I had heard of the pins. Yeah, that's a great example. Are the Mike's Watches or Mont Blanc, which is best known for pen making. And it's sort of funny. It's sort of got a sort of one of these very slowly growing brand recognitions. Most people think I'm mad. Well, Paul, if they ask any of the people who know you, they would they may agree. Okay, for spending money on watches which aren't Rolex. They think I'm flushing it down the toilet. Oh boy. Now, had you bought your FP Journes, if you'd known about them and bought them right before the pandemic, they wouldn't be laughing. I'll put it that way. Hey, Rasmus, I had a cousin who introduced me to the really boutique only brands. I think it was called Rolex. Yeah, that's it. Dan Henry. Dan Henry is another one that's I don't know, is there's got to be another kind of brand that's sort of like it's more than one of these crowd-funded micro brands, but it's not quite up to sort of a well-known stable brand that's been around for a while. Captain Zed, now, behave yourself. Um, Doblis and Son. I only got one so far, but won't be my last. Great example, Rasmus. Yeah, the German watch is my favorite. One of my favorite watches. Period. Is Lang and Hein, and that's because of Marco Lang. But now that Marco Lang is left, and there's a Marco Lang brand, which I would love to get, but I can't afford it. A lot of the ones are a Boot and Lana. I'd love to have a Kari Boot and Lana. They're all kinds of. I mean, back to Paul's point about spending money. Why there's all kinds of crazy things that people spend money on. I had a friend once that he and his wife picked up the hobby of gold mining. and they'd go out and they would buy all of this equipment to go mine gold with. And I don't think they ever broke even for the gold paid for the sluices and pans and whatever, all of the other gizmos. But it's sort of like, so what? That's sort of my. I don't worry about the money part. I worry about it because you've got bills to pay, but otherwise, you know, I think you can find some really great brands. I mean, not so-so brands, but really fantastic brands at some very good prices. If and again, what is a good brand to someone, or what is a good watch to someone, then part is pretty subjective, and also is part discovery. Because I found some great movements in watches that, like Van Cleef and Arpels. This has one of the few movements in it that was totally done by Jean-Marc Viderec and isn't simply a module or something that was done on top of it, like on my Chaumet. So, I think that's what the fun part is. It's sort of like a friend who used to mine for gold or pan for gold, whatever he did. You find things, you discover stuff, and you learn about new places to go gold digging. you know. Oh, let's see what you got here. Almost every brand is one I don't know before I went down the rabbit hole. Yeah, me too. Yeah, boy, the rabbit hole is full of them for you. Moritz Grossmann is probably an in-game watch for me, not a grail. I could probably get one within a few years if I set my eyes on it. A grail to me is unobtainable. That's sort of an interesting one. In a way, I understand it. With a Grail watch, I've had one of my Grail watches was my Vacheron Constantin 1921, and once I got that, I figured, well, I got it made. I don't really need anything else. So, little did I know, I still have the watch. I love the watch, but yep. Hey, Thomas, I never heard of Zeitwinkel until I saw them at watch show. Yeah, this is another thing. Going to watch shows, it was only the second watch show. It was either, I think the first watch time show in New York was in 2014 or 15. I'm not sure which one. But I went to the second one, and it was wonderful. I had a great time, saw all of these different brands, and learned a lot about them. And those things are really fantastic. Um, they had something. This is really funny. This is the watch shows, but one of my favorite watch shows. We went there, and they were taking everybody's picture. They had this really great camera. We were taking like studio quality pictures. So my wife and I thought, well, let's go get our picture taken. So we went up there and got this great picture. We still have it. In fact, it's framed somewhere, I think. So we have this picture, but they said, well, part of it is sort of a promotion for this tequila brand. And so would you mind, we have some little tastings of tequila over here. Would you mind, taking a couple shots of tequila? Well, we had to think about it for maybe a fraction of a second and decided it was a good idea. They never came back. I keep hoping that they'll bring the tequila back. But of course, there's so many at the Watch Time show, the Friday night cocktail party. One year I went and had one too many. It didn't feel so hot. Sin is a big brand I had never heard of. I'm enamored with them, but haven't gotten around to get one. Probably will be in the 140 PBD black. Let me tell you something about Sin. There was Heuer. After World War II, I think it was in the 70s, it may have been the 60s, the German Luftwaffe was sort of being built up. And they needed, they wanted watches. They wanted to get the standard watches for everybody in the Luftwaffe to have a Luftwaffe watch. And so Heuer got the contract, but they gave Sinn the service contract. And so you have, on the one hand, you have Heuer watches that the pilots got, and then you have, but Sinn was doing the service on them. So after a while, they got these watches back with Sinn dials on them, and they're called Sinn dialed Heuers, and there you can find some around. But to me, that is one of the most fun watches to have. That since they were, we're not getting any credit, so we're going to put our dial on the Heuer watch, and they're called Sinn dial Heuers. Hey, Nate. Wish we had watch shows down here in, oh, good grief, Miami. Don't you have 1,000 of them down there? Everyone wears down here our gold Hublot Big Bangs. Well, that's good. I can't believe that Miami doesn't have a watch show every weekend. That's sort of a mecca of watches. They have all these great brands, and that's why I send my at least I did. I sent my Parmigiani there for service, and also my FP Journes. Now, I think that's where they're sending them. I'm not positive. They used to. For some reason, my favorite brand is Laurent Ferrier. I just love everything they do. I love my H. Moser, Kadoki, Garrick, and others, but nothing else quite. You know something, Paul? It's really funny. I like the looks and the movements and everything about Laurent Ferrier, but I was in what is it, Cellini's on Park Avenue in New York, and so I went in and was trying some on, and they didn't have the right heft for me. They had metal bands and everything, but they're very light. You wouldn't even know you're wearing one. And I like a heft to it. And but I do like the brand. I mean, it's just great looking one. You know, one I'm becoming more and more, I guess, go from one obsession to another is Moritz Grossmann. There's something about those watches that I really like, but they're just, wildly expensive. And usually something at that level, if I ever had enough to afford it, there are other things I like that are that expensive. Hey, Mehmet, I'm so new to this world, so nearly all brands. Since I came up to your channel, I started to lean toward movements instead of brands. Yeah, I think that becomes important because I don't know. There's things about it. Something about watch collection that can be very. People have mentioned rabbit hole, so we go down a rabbit hole, sort of like a rabbit hole with a lot of different shiny objects. And oh boy, I'll go here, and then there's sort of another one, another rabbit warren. You go down, and there's something else. That's what makes it an interesting hobby. Right now, I've got this one. This was another aspect of it. This is a movement that I got a while back, and broke. I was trying to make I was talking about this earlier today, and I had problems getting the movement out. I don't know whether I'll ever get the movement working again. I got some plans for it, but there are a lot of different places to go in watch collection that have to do with playing with watches. That's the only word I can use. That's what I like about building my own watches. Building watches, all I'm doing is that I'm putting a movement together with a dial, with the hands and a case, and that's it. That's what a good pretentious watchmaker does. But then I start finding some other things to do, and my experiment with trying to make a resonance watch with two other watches. it got done. I was very surprised to see that Vinnie Halter had he had a sort of a test of test of concept thing that he made, like my out of brass, except his was gorgeous and he put his name on it. But it was something that he built just to see if his resonance would work. He's going to be at the Watch Time show in New York, by the way. That'll be fun. Rune Bakerdorf and Cyril. Oh yeah, Cyril Brevet Nadeau. Yeah, he's the guy that his stuff is one of my favorite. Young guy too. I mean, he looks like he's you know very young guy. Hey Robert, the annual antique show is in Miami Beach. Now there's something that sounds like a lot of fun. You can find antique watches there, I guess. Hey, Frank Florian, how are you? Love the Citizen Chronomaster Eco Drive. Yeah, here's another thing, and this makes watch collection a little dicey. There's some watches that are like really, really good timekeeping devices. Now, I think the extreme of timekeeping devices are the smartwatches. Not only keep time, they tell you all kinds of stuff. One of them asked my wife if she fell down. It's like, are you okay? We're concerned about you. And they're hooked up. I think they're sort of timed by some atomic clock and side of a mountain somewhere where they have perfect timing. But and so you sort of moving backwards. You get to a point where you have a mainspring, and what can you do with a mainspring, and then with a hairspring. Now, you have a lot of new technologies that are coming along, but one thing that's important to remember, quartz watches were like a revolution back in just the 50s and 60s or whenever it was. I mean, you could get this watch that was 10 times more accurate than anything you'd ever had before. I used to buy Timex watches when I was young and wind them up, and they would work great, and then they broke, and I just got another one. When quartz watches came along, those things they were perfectly accurate. And after what they call the quartz crisis, the Swiss had to come up with something that would sort of put them back in business. And so a lot of the stuff that we're doing, where you had a very, very accurate device called a quartz watch before, and then we went back to mechanical watches. And this is why I get all sort of like when they start, stuffing silicone hairsprings into things. That technology is not so much the hairspring technology, but what they're doing to have to make a hairspring that doesn't change. You can't adjust it, all kinds of things like that, but it's extremely accurate. And so there's a sort of like getting great accuracy using sort of transitional metals and some of the same kinds of skills required by Breguet and the early watchmakers. So that becomes much more complex than just the whole idea of having an accurate watch. It can be tricky. My brother's big on solar powered watches. He does solar powered watches, essentially a quartz watch with a solar battery. Let's see. What else we got here? Rasmus. I live less than 30 clicks from Christian Lars. Oh, Christian Lass's stuff is very, very nice. Rasmus, I'd like to go over there and ask him to send me a watch, and I'll say something nice about it. Yeah, he's a really good one. I should see if he has any open hours for visitors. This would be a great guy to visit. Christian Loss is one of these guys that really something. Hey, Nate, you've mentioned being a professor at a number of colleges. Curious as to what your field is. I had different fields. I was in my main interest has been in research methods, okay, research methodology, in the areas of sociology and criminology, okay? And, so those are my areas, but part of it led to computers. I was back in when was it? 1966. I started my first computer programming stuff, and this was with a Fortran with punch cards, and I was at UC Santa Barbara, and we would do our punch cards, and then over the phone lines, we'd send the data down to UCLA where they did the processing, and then our printout would come back a couple days later on the library bus. They had a library bus going back and forth. And the interesting thing was UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, Stanford, and University of Utah, they were the first 4 universities on the internet. It was called, I think it was DARPANET at the time, but they were one of the first ones with it. And so I got into computers, and so in my last 20 years, I was teaching programming and things like that. So it doesn't make any sense. By the way, too, I got to tell you something. I love programming, and the reason for it, criminology and sociology, special social problem, the problems and the complexities are far greater than computer programming. Computer programming, you put in a program and it either works or it doesn't. In terms of criminology, man, it's just like, oh my God, those are tough problems. That book right there behind me is a criminology text I did. That the cover is from a road sign full of bullet holes from the country. So that was that. And then the one with a fish on it. That's a programming book. Okay, let's see. Hey, Mark, how you doing? When I started, I didn't know Marco Lang, and now I really like to have one of his watches from my collection. Mark, did you know F.P. Journe either? When you first started, what did you have? Yeah, it was, hey, AM. Well, how are things in Lisboa? I learned from Turby. Oh, great. I'm thinking about getting one. All right. Hey, flippin' Zippo. Big Sal, Vacheron stole my heart from day one. You know, I'm the same way about Vacheron Constantin or something. I think one of the things I used to belong to Our Lounge, and Our Lounge was this great group of Vacheron Constantin people who I learned so much from them, not just about Vacheron Constantin, but also watches in general. Hey, Rancher, good to see you. Urban Jurgensen, who are they? sounds like a neat brand. Oh, Adrian, how you doing? What do you really think of Rolex for value? Well, different kinds of value, horological value, investment value, what kind of value? I think, people who like Rolexes should enjoy them and really like them. I wouldn't worry about the resale value or flipping value or anything else of a Rolex. If you like a Rolex, you get good timekeeping and enjoy it. That's it. That's all I can say about a Rolex. And if the right one came along at the right time, and I had that's with me, it's like some days I'll have some money and other times I won't. So it depends. Hi, Shannon. How you doing? I don't know anything other than Seiko, Citizen, Casio, Rolex, Tissot, and Swatch. Well, that's a good start. Certainly a big one. Hey, Truman, where do you stand with the Quartz Elegante by F.P. Journe? Well, that started off as a woman's watch, and for some reason is the entire high horology thing for women was included quartz because there were a lot of smaller ones, and they included a whole bunch of jewels and so forth. So I guess F.P. Journe's idea, the big thing I like about that isn't so much that it's quartz, but he figured out how to turn it off. With the Elegante, you have this little rotor. It looks like the kind of rotor you see in a oh, what are they called? Remontoir Galatea. You see those little bitty rotors they have, are they're either rotors or they're something. But anyway, he had put one of those, and when you stop moving, it took the power down. Now that's sort of really interesting. I didn't get one because it's basically a quartz watch. The same thing with Spring Drive by Seiko. They're great watches. They really are. They're interesting technology. But as something I'd like to have, it doesn't do anything for me. Hi, Rasmus. Let's see. Christian Lasmus, he wants taken an interview to work at Peck's museum as a restore. Let me say something about that. If you want to get a really good movement, find out if the watchmaker has had some time working as a restore. It seems that all of the really top ones have worked as a restore before. F.P. Journe worked as a restore for his uncle. Actually, Michel Parmigiani was working for the Sandoz family as a restore. Kari Voutilainen worked as a restore for Parmigiani. So you find something. So Christian Loss is working as a restore. Oh man, that's the kind. I knew there was something more that I liked about the guy. Hey, Dark Star, Fortran or Cobalt? I think it was Fortran -1 that I worked on. We had when we had Dark Star, we learned octal and binary math. That was our starting point. And by the time we got to Fortran, I thought, my God, this language has got to be the be all and end all. And I worked on something called Datatex. It was this one that it's weird. I tell you, it wasn't until really I got my own computer in 1980 that I was able to really make some strides in that. I hated Fortran at the U of M. Mississippi, Michigan, Minot. Hey, Goldfinger, how you doing? Oh, Polgila, okay. Hey, Joseph, how you doing? I didn't know F.P. Journe either. But boy, you know it now. Okay, guys, listen, my time is up. Let me just sort of take these. I guess got the alert from Rancher that it's frying pan time. Let me get a few last ones here. Nate Dogg, LUC Chopard. Yeah, that's a nice one. VC and post JLC movements. Yeah. Junior, let's see. Are you coming to Watch Time New York? I am. I'm only going to be there Friday, though, I think. My wife has got some other plans for me after that. I'll try to make it Saturday morning if I can. I don't know if I can or not. Silicon time, that's right. Chardin, I can't believe people don't still love Zenas El Primero. I think they do. Zenas El Primero, I think, is still very popular. Junior, you be at the cocktail party? Foreman, I like excessive flop in your beret. Oh, this isn't a beret. This is a newsboy cap. The ding you heard was me informing you on WhatsApp. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, guys. Listen, I got to run before I get in trouble. Thank you all for coming. and take care. And I'll see you next time.